Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert, and welcome to everybody. If you are here to do some self-improvement and learn a little bit how to launch a side hustle and how to run it successfully to make yourself some money on the side, give yourself other career options, and otherwise generally come out on top, you have come to the right place. If you see the chat right next to the video, if you're watching this directly on YouTube, get in the chat, say who you are, and ask me questions because I don't have too much of a plan on these live streams. It's just answering questions and covering topics that you guys are interested in. So that's how I know what you're interested in and what I can speak to, and I will try and help you out to the best of my ability. So yes, and welcome to Beck A, who's the latest member on my channel. Thank you to Beck A. Membership has its privileges. So welcome. And I see that there's 7 of you guys here, so congratulations, you're awesome. And I'm looking forward to hearing what are the burning questions or burning challenges that you're facing right now. Now, last week, just to start this off before while we're waiting for questions to come in, last week I covered a couple of different things. And last episode, we were talking about what were we talking about? We're talking about validation, okay? The importance of validating your idea, especially if it's going to require a lot of work or you're deciding to spend a lot of cash to start this up, which you really shouldn't. That's my advice, okay? It is possible to start these things for very little money. And in fact, that should be the approach that everybody takes, in my opinion and in my experience. Having been a CEO, having started up many entrepreneurial ventures, and having worked with startup founders and small businesses and medium-sized businesses of all kinds. We're also going to be doing some myth busting today, hopefully. And one of the myths that needs busting is the fact that you need to spend a lot of money to start up a side hustle or any type of business venture. You really don't, if you choose it correctly, okay? One well-known way of doing it is obviously to start with something that you can do already without needing to spend money or needing to take training or needing to buy anything, something that you can already do. Okay, so that's the approach that I would recommend. The only challenge there is how do you sell it, is the marketing side of things. So last week we were talking about validation, validating your business idea. And the bottom line was that what you basically need is you need to put your idea out there. So let's pretend that you were thinking of doing a side hustle. I don't know, say you're doing a service driving people around, or you're selling a product on the internet on Etsy or Amazon or something like that. And you don't know if this is the way to go. You don't know if it's going to be successful. You don't know if it's something you can do. And you don't know if it's something that you can do at a profit, okay? So what we were talking about last week was the need to validate it. And the only real way to validate a business idea is to blast out the message into the ether and basically say some form of, hello, I'm here. This is what I'm offering. This is the price. Let me know if you want one. And seeing if you get back people that are willing to give you their money. Okay, they say, yes, I need that. Let's get started. How do I pay? That kind of thing. That's the only real way to validate something. You can't go off of surveys. You can't go off of people expressing interest. At the end of the day, none of that really holds water. So that's what we were covering. And that it kind of sounds a bit negative because this is a hurdle you have to overcome. And the idea is that this is a challenge you're going to have to solve at some point. It's much better to face this challenge and solve it before you spend any money and exert any real time and effort towards something. Because if it's an idea that's not going to work out, you want to know that up front. You don't want to find that out only after you've gone to great lengths to do it, okay? So that's why this validation step is super important. And what I want to impress upon everybody this time on this episode is that the obvious question is, how do I get that validation? How do I get, people that want to be my customers? Well, marketing. You basically got to get marketing exposures. You got to get your message out there. And you need both quantity and quality, okay? And the single best way to get your message out to a hell of a lot of people these days is on the internet. It's on social networking, okay? There's many, many ways of doing that. I mean, right now I'm coming to you over YouTube. I mean, YouTube is part of social networking, and it's on the internet, and it's a way to get ideas out to people who might be interested in them. And so there are many versions of this. You could do the Facebook route, you could go LinkedIn, you could go Twitter, you could go Instagram, you could go all these different hubs. You could do Reddit, you could do there's so many different things on the internet that allow you to contact people. And that's what you want to take advantage. You want to do it in a way that you're not paying for it. Okay, so I'm not talking about advertising. I'm talking about just, sending messages, sending tweets, sending posts, that kind of thing, and reaching potential customers. Okay, so you need a quantity of exposures, like where somebody sees your message. You also need quality. Okay, you need to be offering something compelling and something that makes sense for people. So you got to get both of those things right at once. It sounds like a big challenge, but it really isn't. It's just a matter of brainstorming. What can you do? And if you know a little bit about it, you might have a basic understanding already of who might be interested and how much they would want to pay and how they would pay and how it would all work. Okay, so take your best shot. A great thing is to see what other people are doing. Just use that as a sort of base reference. And that's kind of just a good general rule, just to kind of do a sanity check and see that, what you're asking is not like just unheard of and really excessive. So that's the way to go. Okay, marketing is the answer to how you get validation. It's about mastering how to get exposures to your potential audience, your potential customers. Okay. And excellent. We have people in the chat. So welcome. The first one, the person who wins the prize for the first question of the day is Nidoc. Says, shout out Mr. Business Expert for helping us all. Thank you. Left a like and we'll watch later in free time. Okay, makes sense. Brad Bell, any recommendations on if TaskRabbit or Fiverr are best for small side hustles? I'm not I'm not an expert on either of those websites, but I understand they are popular. I do hear about Fiverr constantly. I have people, I just keep hearing the name. I know there's a lot of people on Fiverr out there. Whenever you get on the internet, I seem to attract people that are on Fiverr that want something from me. So I know it's pretty popular. In as much as, if one is more effective than the other, I don't personally know that, but that's something that you can test. Okay. And, if you're thinking of doing a thing, okay, usually you're going to have to get all your information firsthand. You're going to have to test things out. You can get advice from me and other people, for sort of generalities. But when it comes to specific questions like that, you're going to have to get information. Now, the other aspect of this is that, you're saying which site is better, this site or that site. Well, maybe if you're doing one type of business, Fiverr is better. Maybe if you're doing another type of business, TaskRabbit is better. So, you're going to have to find out firsthand one way or another at some point anyway, right? So that all gets part of the validation process. So what you would do if you are honestly struggling with this, you don't know which one to go with. It doesn't seem to me like there's any reason why you can't go with both. Try both in the beginning. Try and get your message out there on both platforms and see which one is bearing fruit, which one is more effective at contacting your prospects, your potential customers or clients, depending on what you're trying to do. Okay? Do both, and you will get firsthand information on what the results are. It's also obviously going to depend on what your message is. Okay? So the first variable is what you're doing, what type of business you're trying to do. The second variable is what message you're sending out there to try and drum up business and interest, right? So maybe one approach would be better on one platform and another approach would be better on another platform. If you are sending your message out in the form of a photo, like a picture, okay? You're sending a visual, like a say a photograph or a graphic that has, your essentials, your price, the name of your product or service, maybe your link to a website or where you go to get it. And then the competitive points, like the positive aspects of your thing that you're selling. What are the benefits? if you put all that into a graphic and it's very visual, maybe would suit one of these platforms as opposed to doing a text post, which would get more exposure because of its algorithm, or it'd be more appropriate for audiences on another platform. So, right? So this is all the stuff you're going to be testing. And the only way to do it is to actually try, is to actually take that step and go and start doing this. Because the sooner you get information coming back as to what works and what doesn't work, the more odds you're going to be of making this a success, right? So hopefully that makes sense, Brad Bell. Brad Bell says, thank you, sir. Good advice looking to do voiceovers. Okay, yeah. I know I've heard of that. That's a thing. So yeah. But that's excellent. That's kind of part of the validation thing. And then the other thing is, like I said, the general rule is always to, as much as possible, see what other people in your space are doing. So if there's other people doing voiceovers, if you notice that they are promoting themselves on a certain platform in a certain way over a certain channel, that might be something for you to try also. Okay. You can learn from what other people are doing. Doesn't mean you just copy blindly, but it means it's good to sort of keep your finger on the pulse of what other people are doing, just to make sure that, you're taking advantage of their learning also, right? They've obviously tried many things and they've come up with this that they're sticking with. So you can maybe jump to that conclusion and reap the reward. Okay. But that's a great question. So we were talking about validation last week. We were talking about marketing this week. That's the answer, okay, to how to validate, how to get stuff happening. It's all about marketing. Now, maybe you're the type of person that is into that kind of thing. Maybe you're not, okay? Maybe you're like me. You're introverted. You were never a salesperson. You were never an extroverted type person that knew a million people, that enjoyed selling things, in making a pitch, promoting yourself. Maybe you're just not that type of person. Well, I got to tell you, if that's you, in this day and age, with tools like the internet at your disposal, that's really not too much of a disadvantage. You can use a lot of your strengths to really give you an advantage. Your strengths might be, you're organized, you're meticulous, you have attention to detail, you care about quality. Maybe you're more that type of person. And because of the internet enabling you to not have to do personal sales or go door to door or anything like that, you can do, your sales and marketing can be as simple as sending messages and doing posts, right? Because of that, it really allows you to shine. You can make it in this game. You have some real skills that you can use to your advantage to find success. So I want to encourage, especially the more introverted people out there, if this is something you want to do a side hustle, make, to supplement your income, make $500 a week, $500 a month, whatever your goal is to supplement your income, you can do this. Okay, this is something that is possible for everybody. Yeah, so get in the chat, ask your questions. I'm feeding off questions. There are 24 people here, so thank you for being here. You guys are all awesome. You are all looking presumably to do some self-improvement, to learn some new skills, and to make this happen. I think business is a wonderful thing. It really opens doors for a lot of people. It gives you a lot of options. It gives you security because your income is not just coming from one place. You've got a couple of different income streams, so if anything happens to your day job or, whichever way the economy goes and stuff, there's a lot of advantages in it. So I'd encourage everyone to do this, especially young people. If you're in your 20s, right? This is a real life skill that can really enhance your career for the entire rest of your life. And obviously, I've got a course. If anybody, it's an option for some people who are looking to learn business and they're looking for the actual, real, verified business advice, not just, the kind of, I don't know what you call it, sort of like the gray area. If you go on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, you know what I'm talking about. You look at the posts on LinkedIn, and it's this pseudoscience business posts that people like to post. They just make something up and then act like it's a business thing, right? There's all kinds of really strange and unusual things that people say about things like leadership and stuff. Like, none of that's true. None of that's established. It's just people saying things, and it's seemingly valid because it looks professional, but it isn't. It's just people post stuff. So if you want to not be taken in by all that, but look at actual business advice that's been true, tried and true, it's been tested by academics, by experts in the field, it's the valid stuff. That's what I have in my course, because my course, the content doesn't come from me. The content is from the best people in the world in each respective area of business, okay? You're basically going to be reading the marketing book that's used in universities, not written by me, written by the furthest experts in the field, and you're going to be studying that. It's a self-study program. You do it on your own terms, on your own schedule, and at your convenience, and you only learn the aspects of business that you're interested in if that's what you're into. You can do the whole thing, in which case you're getting essentially the same knowledge as you would in an MBA program at a university, Masters of Business Administration. But if you just want to pick and choose, you just want to learn the marketing part, you don't care about accounting or finance or operations, you can do that. So anyway, if you're interested in that, if that's something that would help you, that's the course. There's a link in the description. And I also have a link to a video that describes it in more detail so you can see what it's all about. Anyway, RM. I remember RM. RM says, thanks for the advice. What are your thoughts on selling products online, social media manager, managing websites for restaurants, etc., rent out your space, your room or garage, online tutor? Yes, all of those are valid. The first one, okay, if you can help businesses have traditional brick and mortar businesses, if you can have them help them have an online presence, number one, there's real money in that. And number two, that is definitely adding value. There are a lot of businesses out there that, they're traditional brick and mortar businesses. Maybe they're, it's like a pizza place or something, or a restaurant. Okay. They've had a store selling pizzas for years, and they've tried to get on the internet, and they've got a website, and they might even have something where you can order pizza or you could contact them. They might have that, but it's not like it's really boosted their sales. Okay. Directly. Okay, there's many traditional businesses that have this problem where they'd like to tap the internet, but they can't. And so if you can help them with that, but do it in an effective way, there's real money in that, okay? Number one, businesses have money to spend, okay, much more than individuals, so you can make up a lot of money. Imagine doing a job for somebody and then charging them $2,000 as opposed to charging them $10. That's the difference between going to businesses as opposed to going to individuals. Okay. So there's that. Number two, if you look at it from the perspective of the value you generate, okay, if you can increase their business by 10% because you have done their online presence really well, you've made them discoverable, you've made them, you've opened up new possible customers to them, new markets, things like this, you're directly adding to their bottom line. And if you charge them a percentage, like a piece of the value that you're generating, that's still a lot of money. Okay, that's considerable. And the third thing I like about it is because so many businesses have this as a real problem. Okay, I mean, I'm a bit of an exception. I'm sort of a traditional business guy, but here I am on the internet doing YouTube. And a lot of companies do YouTube, and they're terrible at it. They might have 100 subscribers or something, and all the subscribers are their friends and family and business partners, and that's it. No real subscribers, but they could offer so much. They could educate people. They could become a hub of what's going on in that business, that industry. There's so much they could do, but because they're geared to traditional business and they don't really understand the internet or, newer technologies like things like YouTube and Instagram and stuff, because they don't understand that, they're not really doing it right. And as a result, they're missing out on a huge opportunity. So that's the one that jumps out to me of those ideas. Rent out your space. Yep. I mean, yeah, you could do that. Make sure you know what you're getting into, because people like to see the upside. They see, ooh, the revenue I'm going to get. They don't usually see the downside. Oh, I'm going to have to manage people. I'm going to have to possibly evict somebody. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay. Online tutoring. Yeah, that's a thing. I'm not in that business myself, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but all of those are valid. If you particularly had your heart set on any of those, I would definitely take the next step and look into it, try and validate it, get some information. Icky Monk, there's a name. Congratulations on the most awesome name of the day, Icky Monk. Big thanks for having helped myself and several other pharma specialty reps during job transitions. A few of us have implemented your tactics up to the base salary and boosted your base salary by 10%. Congratulations, Icky Monk. That's great to hear. And thank you for saying so. Yes. So while we're waiting for more questions to come in about side hustles or starting up any kind of business in general, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Last episode, the other thing I kind of touched briefly, and this isn't sort of maybe the core part of side hustles, but I had touched briefly on investors. When you talk about entrepreneurship, everybody wants to hear about investors. So I'd briefly mentioned something about that. I talked about the concept that when people want to sell someone on the idea of your business, okay, what a lot of amateur people do, what a lot of students do, or amateur startup founders do, is what they do is they basically do a presentation on the industry. So earlier, RM had suggested being a social media manager, okay, manage websites for restaurants. So if let's pretend they were trying to get investors for that business idea. What a lot of amateur people would do is they would give you a presentation on that business, that industry. They would say, look how many businesses are getting online. Look how many billions or trillions of dollars are being done, in e-sales online. And this trend is going up. Therefore, it's the right business to get into. And so because it's going to be a really hot area, it already is, but it's going to be even more. That's why you should invest. And my point was that this is a very ineffective and amateur way of trying to get an investor and trying to convince them to invest in you, because investors, they're not thinking like that. They already know that doing business online is the way to go. They already know it's only going to get better, and a lot of people are going to make money. What they don't know, and what they're looking to find out, is, are you the right person to become a success doing that business? What are your capabilities? We know that a lot of people are going to be successful at this type of business. Are you going to be one of the successful ones, or are you going to be totally out of your depth? You don't understand business. You don't understand this industry. So although other people will be a success, you won't. They want to know about you. Okay, that's what they're thinking of. And so my point last week was that you can't just pitch the industry. You have to sort of pitch your own capabilities. Okay. And the irony of this whole thing is that a lot of investors, if you don't have a successful track record of having become a success at selling things and getting business operations off the ground, they're probably going to be suspicious of you anyway. You're going to be untested. You're going to be risky. So the irony and the end result usually is that when you need investors for a certain business idea at the very beginning, usually you can't get them because you're an unknown quantity. And then later on, when you've found success, when you have a track record of starting business operations and you're bringing in money, ironically, that's when investors warm to you. The problem is, at that point, all things being equal, you'd rather not take investor money. Instead, you'd rather reinvest your own, right? You're making money at that point. The need for investors is kind of not nearly as pressing as it was before. So that's kind of the nature of that game. So that's not something that most people have to deal with in side hustles. But if you're wanting to start a full-blown entrepreneurial venture, that's how that stuff goes. In my experience, I've seen this. I've heard like something like 1,000 students pitch business ideas and all this kind of stuff. So there you go. I wanted to finish that point that I started last week. And besides, you don't need them. I recommend that if you're going to do a side hustle or any startup type business, it should be something that you can just get started immediately. It should be something that your biggest challenge is going to be the marketing. Okay? So coming back to the whole name of this live stream, Side Hustle Ideas, what are ideas that you could do? Start by thinking of things that you can already do. Okay? The capabilities you have. If you have a room to rent out, like RM said, you could rent that out. That's something you already have, right? If you have a vehicle and you got spare time on your hands, maybe driving people around like an Uber type thing, maybe that would be, an idea. Because it's something that if somebody showed up and got right in your face and said, look, here's my money, take my money, now provide me that thing, you'd be able to do it. Okay, so start by thinking of the things you have. Online tutoring was also mentioned. There you go. If you're already an authority in an area or you have expertise in an area, maybe you do tutoring in real life. That would be even better. You can go to online tutoring. Maybe you do tutoring as a volunteer type thing. You can already do it. Now it's just a question of, can I make money doing it? Right? So start by thinking of what you have. If you are an arts and crafts type person, you can make little products, something you could sell. Okay? You can already make the product. The question is, could you make money making a lot of them? Right? So start with what you have. That's the best place to start. Don't start thinking of business ideas that you could do for a side hustle that are things that you know nothing about and you've never done before. You don't understand how to even do it, let alone how to sell it. Okay, that would be my recommendation. The first place to look. Brad Bell says, I know everyone is different. However, what are your top 3 side hustles? In other words, what do you think of when you think of side hustles? Okay. Okay, let's answer that. Well, I haven't really thought about it. I mean, there are many, many things. Now, I don't look for specific actual businesses. I look at the traits of the business idea, okay? Number 1, you want something where there's a lot of money to be made. So if your customers are businesses, like something RM suggested earlier, I think those are the great ideas because if you win at doing it, you win big, okay? The problem is when you're doing something where you make very little money, as opposed to something like tutoring or driving people around, you're not going to be charging people thousands of dollars for that, right? You're going to be charging much less than that per customer. But each customer requires individual attention, okay? So if you're going to give an individual customer your individual attention, okay, do you want it to be somebody who's going to pay you $20? Or, a low amount of money, whatever currency you're in? Or do you want it to be someone who's going to pay you $2,000 or some higher amount of money for your services and time? I would go that route, okay? So go to people that have more money to spend. Usually that's businesses, okay? Now, if you can actually provide something of value to a business, okay, they're willing to pay for it, okay? If you can do something well. Now, the example of being a social media manager or any kind of online presence, establishing an online presence for a business that, maybe it's a smaller business. There's only 30 people in the company. It's a company that repairs something or a company like a restaurant, something like that, maybe 30 people and like a family owned restaurant. And none of those people are really internet types. They're not on social media, but you are, and you understand it, and you understand how to promote a business, and you have all the things they're looking for. Not only are you capable of going out and working independently, not always checking back with them every 5 minutes, but you have some real talents there, and you can represent them well, and this kind of. If you can really provide value to them, then you can really clean up. You could do some good, you can make money, everybody's happy. Okay. So those are the types of businesses that I personally think are good as a side hustle. And on top of it, it's a service business. You're providing a service as opposed to selling a product. Service businesses tend to be more profitable on the low end, and they tend to require less capital, less money to start them up. Okay, so it ticks several boxes for a good business idea. It's definitely something that I would want to validate. I would look into that sooner than I would like renting room space or tutoring online. That's my taste. I mean, that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter what my opinion is. It matters what's right for everybody, right? If you have talents in a certain area, that's probably the right thing for you to do. Okay? But that's how I think about these things. But good question, Brad Bell. RM says, excellent topic. How could you invest 10,000, 25? Okay, well, I don't give out investment advice. What I would say if you're interested in the investment side of things is learn finance, because if you don't know finance, you are an amateur that's just waiting around to get screwed, basically, right? It's a very dangerous game if you don't know what you're doing, and you can't really pick it up by like listening to different people's advice, you know, little tips and tidbits here and there. You've got to learn how this stuff works fundamentally, okay? You're getting into a whole different world, and you know, you need to learn how all that stuff works from beginning to end. Incidentally, I mean, that is one of the topics in my course, because it's one of the topics in business. I have a master's degree in finance. You know, it's something that you learn firsthand through the course, but you're not getting it from me. You're getting it from the real global authorities on this stuff, and they lay it all down. And it's something that if you ever want to have money and hold on to your money and use your money wisely, have it grow rather than shrink, finance is the thing to learn. It's the study of money and what to do with it. So if investing is something you want to do, learn finance, okay? It's like saying, I want to climb a mountain. I want to climb Mount Everest. You know, but you've never tried to climb a mountain before, and you haven't cracked open a book on how to do mountaineering, never taken a training course. What are the odds you're going to climb Mount Everest? Well, you're probably going to fail, right? But if you properly prepare yourself, you can climb Mount Everest. Hundreds of people do every year. I think even thousands of people do every year. You know, so it's a challenge, but prepare yourself. Alabra Lala, if I'm saying that right, says, what would be your proposal for someone who has 10 plus years of experience in an area of expertise, which is highly looked for, yet companies rather hire someone instead of sourcing that expertise? Okay, well, I mean, okay, that's general. One obvious thing would be to go to smaller companies, okay, because, like, think of HR, for example, recruitment and selection. Think of benefits administration. Think of even accounting services. These are things that all businesses need, right? Now, in order to do it, if you're very small, if you're a 10-person company, is one of those people going to be a full-time HR person and a full-time accountant? Usually not, right? Especially accounting. That's usually outsourced. You go to an accountant who does accounting for businesses, okay? They will charge you a fee, and they will come in and they will do all your accounting functions. They will do all the bookkeeping. They'll do your tax returns. They'll do all your, financial statements, like all that stuff, inventory, whatever you're looking for. At the low level, that's usually farmed out. Okay, so they're not looking to hire an internal person to do that on the small scale, right? But there's a hell of a lot of those businesses. There's a hell of a lot. Like, don't take my word for this. Go do research where you are. Look at the breakdown of how many businesses there are in your region or your city or something by different size. You'll see that there's an enormous amount of smaller businesses, say between 5 people and 50 people. There's like a ton. It's the biggest area of business in terms of like number of businesses. And most of them are probably in the market for that very thing. And they don't have a dedicated internal employee that does that full time. Okay. So the first thing I would do is I'd look at the sort of small scale for those type of businesses. Okay. Now, the challenge you have there is, say you can provide the service, you've got that down. Like everything else, it's just a matter of selling it, which is the marketing side. Okay. And depending what you're trying to do, there might be an element of trust there. If you're trying to do accounting, for example, there's going to be a big element of trust. Okay. People are going to trust you with all this confidential information and, doing taxes and things. You have to meet legal requirements. I mean, they're trusting you with the crown jewels. If you screw up, you could potentially end their business if you make a real big blunder, right? So, the way you market yourself, you got to learn the ins and outs of that, right? And so that's where we come back to the idea of validation. Okay, like what I was talking about earlier, and in the last episode. Okay, so so that's where I would start. Alabra goes on. Additionally, how to deal with the employer who forbids offering summer services to competitors. I don't know what you mean by that. Like, you're currently working. Oh, is this your client you're talking about? Like the employer is your client? You do work for them, but they don't want you also doing that service for their competitor? Is that what you're talking about? Or you're talking about your employer? Like, you're doing this on the side, and they don't want you doing the same work you do in your day job independently on the side. If that's what you're asking, that's typical. Okay, employers generally don't like people doing side hustles. Okay, now in most cases, there's not much they can do about it because it's your personal time, it's your personal life. They don't have the powers of God over you. They can't dictate to you what you do when you're not on the clock, as it were. Okay, but what they can do is they make you sign things like non-competes and things like this, where you agree that while you're working for us, you won't be providing this type of work to anyone else, right? So if you have signed that kind of contract, obviously your hands are tied. I wouldn't recommend breaking it or sort of doing it on the quiet. I wouldn't recommend that. Additionally, they might not have made you sign a contract, but they're just not very. They don't approve of that kind of thing. It's frowned upon. You're providing your services for your employer, but you're also taking advantage of your expertise with your employer to provide that benefit to other people too. They don't like that. And that's kind of more or less a universal thing. So I mean, I don't know what particular situation you're in, but just keep that in mind. You can investigate it. Sometimes it makes sense to investigate it with your employer, and you could even ask explicitly, look, if I'm providing this at work, do you have any official objection if I do this? I mean, I wouldn't always recommend that, but it can include things like that. Okay? But the reason I say that is because you don't want to end up in a situation where, let's say you're an accountant and you've got a day job as an accountant with a big corporation. On the side, you decide to start a side hustle providing accounting services to independent customers directly. Okay, but then your employer finds out about that and they say, we don't like that. It's a conflict of interest, so I'm sorry, we're going to have to let you go. You don't want that type situation. So Alabra says, my expertise is only needed at larger corporations. Yes, the typical situation. Okay, well, I mean, once again, it depends on details. There isn't a blanket answer for how to handle it. It depends on the culture of your employer, basically. Do a lot of other people do that kind of thing at your employer? Sometimes they do, and it's okay. Other times, it's absolutely not allowed. As soon as they hear that you're doing your day job independently as a side hustle, that's like grounds for dismissal. So it really varies. You have to sort of figure out what you're doing. There isn't a blanket answer of yes or no. It's always going to be a shade of gray or a shade of maybe, right? Now, one option for you, if you're serious about this, is to sort of make a jump if you feel very confident that you can apply, you can sell your services to many clients, including maybe your current employer. I've seen employees that what they do is they enter into a special arrangement with their boss, and essentially they become a contractor. So they're no longer an employee, they're a contractor. The advantages for the employer is that the employer doesn't have to pay certain benefits, and they don't have to worry about always keeping them busy, and their pay is variable. Okay, so they can scale back using you. But the flip side, the advantage of that is that then you can go and do work for other parties, and that's okay. Right? So I've seen that type of arrangement. I myself have never entered into that type of arrangement with my company or an employer of mine, but I've seen others do it. So that may be a possibility, depending on who you are and what you're doing and what the company is. Okay, I have to start wrapping this up very, very soon, but I want to do I want to do some myth busting. I want to continue that from last week. We talked about a couple of myths that were bad. One of them was that starting your own business, whether it's a side hustle or otherwise, is inherently risky. It's a myth. No, it isn't. It doesn't have to be if you go about it the right way. If you validate everything and you do things in the right order, it doesn't have to be risky. You don't have to risk your personal finances. You don't have to risk your life savings or anything like that. That's a fallacy. There's some people that give everyone that impression. That is incorrect. You just have to put a little brains into it, and then the only thing you risk is your time being wasted. But as I always say, you're learning by doing it. So is your time really wasted if you've learned a whole bunch of things? I'll leave that up to you. The other thing we were talking about is that you have to quit your job to do like a business or anything on the side. Answer is no. You can successfully do a side hustle, literally on the side, right? So there's some myths there. Another myth that I'd like to bust is the whole build it and they will come. That is absolutely incorrect. That is the opposite of reality. If you build something and say, yeah, I'm here, I put up a website, I offer tutoring services, people will just line up and to give you money. It doesn't work like that. You then have to go and do the marketing. You have to get the message out. You have to get the right message out. It has to go to people that are would-be potential customers. You can't just go out into, the broad population. It has to go specifically to places where people who are your potential customers or potential clients would see it. Okay? That's how that works. And you have to have figured out who would be your potential customers and where they are. Okay? Those are kind of the three things you need to have figured out. And then when you actually put the work behind it and get the message out, then people come. They will not come otherwise. If you're doing a tutoring business, getting the message out could simply be word of mouth. You don't have to put up a website. You don't have to send any posts. You don't have to put up a sign or anything. You just tell a couple of people, I'm doing this. And if those people are potential customers and they already think you're awesome, maybe that's all it takes, but you have to get the message out there. A new myth I want to bust is that there are barriers. There's considerable barriers to entry to do this. There aren't. Anybody can do this, especially in this day and age. For zero money, anybody can do this. Anybody can get it off the ground. Okay? On the extreme low end, as an example, look what this is. A YouTube channel. How much does it cost to start a YouTube channel? Zero. Right? So, on the very low scale, that there's an example right there. And that used to be a very popular thing. I don't know if it's a popular thing anymore, but it used to be a very popular thing at one point. I remember a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago, something like that, maybe more recently, supposedly, allegedly, a lot of kids and stuff today, a lot of young people, you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? What profession do you want to do? And they say, or what occupation? They say, I want to be a YouTuber. I think until TikTok came along, that's what they were all saying. It was like the number one most popular thing that people wanted to do. How much does it cost to get into that business? Zero. But yet, many people tried it and failed because they just didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they were getting into. A lot of people weren't that serious about it, but the ones that were serious that failed, it's usually because of some form of that. So it's about learning what to do. So you don't have to spend any money and there's no barriers to entry. That's the thing. A lot of people use excuses why they don't start a side hustle that they could be making a lot of money at. That's probably number one. That's certainly one of the most popular excuses I've seen, is that, oh, you need a lot of money to start something. Nope. Incorrect. And, oh, there's barriers preventing you from starting something. Nope. No, they aren't. There aren't. So that's probably good for today. Thank you so much for there's 28 of you guys here. I guess we had 3 people join in the last minute. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you have any questions, this is the place to ask them. If you're trying to send me questions about business or side hustles, this is my forum set up for precisely that purpose. Don't send me comments. Don't send me emails. Don't try and contact me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. This is the place to be. And I will be happy to respond and try and help you out. Thank you so much. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode. Until then, take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.